Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a better day than me. Got about 3 hours sleep, fell down some stairs. Something else. Oh, spilled coffee all over my phone. Spilled coffee all over the wall. Been a great morning. Voice is absolute hot garbage today. Sinuses are affected too, so great. Oh, and then YouTube also removed a whole bunch of thumbnails, videos. That was great. Oh, I'm glad I helped, Thomas. I really am. Anything to make the day easier is always a bonus, in my opinion. And also, welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a fantastic morning, day, night. Woohoo! It's been a year already. Yeah. So this is, today is the first day of recovery from the surgery, because I got affiliate when I was recovering from the voice surgery. It's been over a year. How time flies. Thank you, Phoenix. I hope you have a fantastic day. That is really awesome to hear, Phoenix. The old back is starting to hurt. That's great. Thankfully, I did take some preemptive painkillers and anti-inflammatories. But I don't know how much that's going to help. I think what I'm going to do today, I'm going to record chapter 1 and 2 of Because Someone Had To. And then I'm going to play some Magic Arena, because my voice is absolute hot trash. And trying to force myself to narrate through it is a surefire way to causing strain. Nice. Nice. Doing as well as can be, Deuce. Other than last night where I got like little sleep and falling downstairs and stuff. But overall, it's been great. How are you doing? Hope things have been well. great even, possibly even bordering on superb. Oh. I'm also talking with my microphone muted. Hello, 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 new people. I saw a surge of viewers and bigger numbers, better stream. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. As you can tell, I'm not quite my normal energetic self. Ugh, but such is life. That was a half yawn, by the way. It was a yawn that started off as a yawn and then just fucked off halfway. A tease, if you will. Well, it's not good. But, yeah. I mean, when we arrived here, I had 6 weeks of just solid sick. It wasn't great. Cool. Technical difficulties. Just move that over there. Like so. There will be much clearing of my throat. It's related to the sinuses, and they're not sleeping. So I do apologize in advance. Ooh. What do we have here? Thomas Phelan. Thank you very much for the $10 super chat. It is super appreciated. And he says, would love to stay, but it's 1 a.m. and I need sleep. Take this, and I hope you have a better time going forward. Yarg! Well, they'll definitely try. But, again, thank you very, very much for the $10 super chat. It is very, very much appreciated. Now, we do the usual YouTuber thing, and we change it. Change the goal. We move the goalposts. Huh. That sucks. It doesn't roll one gold into the next. Look, my life is pretty much the same as it was in South Africa. I sit in this room and I record most days. There's a nice little shopping center not too far away. Food is food. Everything tastes slightly different, so it takes a bit of getting used to. They do like their baked goods, which I've been sampling just for scientific purposes. There are some nice ones that are definitely taken my fancy. I don't know what they're called, but they're caramel coconut meringue things. Very, very nice. Too nice, in fact. I have been banned by my wife from going to go grocery shopping because whatever she asks for, I come back with whatever she asks for, plus a bag full of these sweets. So, yeah. My sweet tooth gets the better of me. Takeaways here is ridiculously expensive. DoorDash, Uber, all of that stuff, stupidly expensive compared to just buying food. I think most meals for 3 or 4 people works out to about €100. It's going well. We've got 4 chickens, 5 chickens. I think I showed them the last time. It's just, I don't know. Haven't been in the mood for editing. And then that channel is also currently demonetized. My own fault. I was fiddling with settings and accidentally removed my monetization, so there's that. And then, yeah, been focusing a lot more on like work stuff, this stuff, than the property or recording it. But I'll do another vlog style thing because we've changed some stuff. We've got some veggies growing. The chicks are pretty full grown for chooks now. So, yeah, everything's going well. As well as can be. There's a bunch of city slickers trying to figure out this whole homesteading thing. Although they grow cabbage here in a very weird way. So they don't grow it in balls. They grow it in the stem and then eat the leaves. Which in most other types of cabbage is inedible or just very bad tasting. Yeah, well, I come from South Africa. Anything that Portugal has to throw at me is not going to touch my stomach. Yes, I've got 6 chicks, include my wife. But my wife is definitely the head chick. I reckon in a cage match she could beat the other ones. Even if they teamed up 5-1, I reckon she comes out on top. It would be a funny cage match, though. It's quite ridiculous. I mean, I suppose it does encourage you to eat from home. But sometimes you don't feel like that. Beep, beep, beep. So I don't think this is going to be a particularly long stream, to be quite honest. Okay, I'm going to soldier through the first 2 chapters before things start to stiffen up. And then we'll see where we are after that. Yeah. Also, sometimes just don't feel like cooking. And quite honestly, stuff you can cook at home can out bad takeaways. Takeaways isn't the sole holder of bad food. I can cook stuff at home that'll be worse for me than takeaways. Like, by a million times. Same as like restaurants. Restaurants don't have healthy food. But I think there's also the culture here is more cook at home. I know a lot of the properties, when I was looking for properties, had stoves, fire stoves, in their kitchens. It would drive me out the wall, but they've still got fire stoves for big cooking. Thank you for the kind words to Salt. Okay, we're heading into chapter 1. And I'm developing a headache. Probably hit my head. Oops, that was the wrong button. Alrighty, going into chapter. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to his latest narration. Nope. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. That's definitely not it. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to his latest edition of HFY, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Because Someone Had To, written by Mac Dye. This is a several... How many parts is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is a 7-part series, and this is part 1 in that series. There will be a playlist that's down... This is a 7-part series, and there will be a playlist listed down below. Also, head to the original story, do the update thing, and tell Mac Dye that I sent you. Anyways, on to the story. I've been Holbein, and as the author. Why? A Kilton child seated. Why? A Kilton child seated in front row of the class of age... Gotta be a long stream just narrating this. Why? A Kiltan child seated in the front row of a class of like-aged children from many races had raised their primary limb to gain the teacher's attention. It was rare a child of such young age showed interest in galactic history. But when learning of the liberation of one's race by a species that has lost everything in the process, even a naive child's attention was captivated. The class's teacher was silent for a moment, studying the child that had asked the question. The Kiltan still bore the genetic markers from centuries of slavery and biological conditioning. But even after just a few generations of freedom, they were fading. Because, always, the humans always answered that question the same way. Because someone had to. The Terran ambassador has requested to speak before the council and has been granted the floor. You may speak. The speaker, a Kiltan elder, stood at the foot of the crown. The speaker, a Kiltan child. The speaker, a Kiltan elder, stood at the foot of the council's dais. The creature's chitin crest was gilded in rare metals and was draped in expensive robes. But it was little more than decoration. An expensive bauble flaunted by its masters, an impressive representative of his species, purchased and modified for the unique task of standing motionless and speaking a clear, unaccented galactic common, and capable of little else, at least in the eyes of the council's species. Boomer Juice is fighting back. The Terran ambassador was an older man, dressed in a simple, if well-tailored suit, and using an old wooden cane to counter the otherwise severe limp. The man approached the speaker's post, located near the Kiltan speaker, and stood still a moment to study the larger, albeit just as old creature in all its splendor. Thank you, Speaker. Council, I appreciate the opportunity to address the gathered signatory species. Members of the council were visibly irritated by the human's choice to address the speaker directly, and them second. But the humans were new to the Senate and held only a minor place. Likely this would be the first and quite possibly last time a human ambassador would be given the right to address the chamber. The various Senate members and representatives murmured and laughed at the human's crude behavior. But the old human simply stood leaning on his cane and waited for silence. The room died down in short order. Everyone had better things to do, and gossiping about the humans was not one of them. When silence reigned again, the human cleared his throat and finally spoke. Humanity is a young species, compared to many here. A mere 300,000 and some years from our more recent evolutionary ancestors till now. In our history are many dark truths of our past, things for which we hold no pride, but from which we have drawn strength and wisdom. He glanced at the Kiltan speaker for a moment, then looked directly at the Rationient, He glanced at the Kiltan speaker for a moment, then looked directly at the Roshinian representative. Since joining the council and being granted a place in the Senate, albeit a minor one, our philosophers and lawmakers have pored over the laws and standards held by this ruling body. Humanity had arrived on the council's awareness a few... Humanity had arrived on the council's awareness a scant few years prior. Little was known of them, mostly due to apathy on the part of many of the signatory species and the council itself. They had met the minimum requirements for membership and had levied the mandated fees, and little more was expected of them. The private sector would sort out the fledgling race and likely drive them into crippling debt, as was so often the case with minor races. We have known slavery. Only 300 years ago was the practice finally abolished entirely among my own people. We believe the practice abhorrent. The belief that any one lineage, nation, or species is inherently subservient is folly. We learned long ago that divisions from class based on race or gender simply limit the potential of the population. There were angry murmurs throughout the chamber. The council itself grew restless with simmering rage. Don't shout at me. That an upstart race and new petition to the assembly would make such a bold and aggressive statement. It was once believed that women were second-class citizens, that they should stay in the home, raise the children, and cook the meals, that they could not be scientists or politicians or doctors. It was once believed that the peoples of Africa were subhumans, capable of only mimicking civilized customs, and were suited to little outside of hard labor. Wars were fought among my own people to bring an end to such beliefs. Laws were passed on the basic requirements and rights of every human. Constitutions were rewritten. Constitutions were rewritten. The angry rumbling of the Senate now grew, but was held from a full... The angry rumbling of the assembled Senate grew, but were held from a full outburst by the staying hand of the Siluan's councillor, who glared with cold eyes at the small, frail human. As such, I've been directed by my leaders to put forth a motion to the council. He turned to face the council rather than the assembled Senate members. The practice of slavery is to be abolished, and all species given free and equal standing on the Senate. The worlds of their birth and any former colonies return to their own rule, and reparations be paid. Naturally not something that can be achieved overnight. But we are prepared to offer economic boons and adjudication. But we are prepared to offer economic boons and adjudication to help facilitate the transition. The ambassador's tone was straightforward and calm. No sense of sarcasm. It was as if the statement could only have one logical response from the Senate and Council: to accept the terms. The outrage boiled over. A mindless roar of accusations, threats, and insults spilled forth from the Senate onto the human ambassador, who simply stood leaning on his cane and studying the council. Then he turned his attention to the speaker, who simply stood staring at the old human in disbelief. He would not dare to hope, of course, but he could appreciate the words of what would soon surely be another enslaved species pressed into service of the council. That's not good. That's almost a national emergency, James. As a gesture from the council species, the Senate quieted. The eldest of the council races then stood there. The eldest of the council races stood then, a towering creature of scale hide and crooked fanged jaw. The Sinuans have ruled the stars for thousands of your years. We have conquered a dozen empires before the council was even formed. Tell your leaders that no upstart younglings will dictate to the council. Yours shall be just another footnote in history, and your descendants shall work and change for their betters. The ambassador smiled at the speaker, then looked up at the Siluan's counselor. A young race we are, yes, but know this. 400 years ago. 400 years ago, we landed on our homeworld's moon. 20 years prior, we split the atom. 40 years before that, we discovered flight. We've known war without end for all of our 200 millennia of existence. And should you choose war, you shall quickly learn how far we have come from the first fire-hardened spear to now. 400 years ago, your grandfather sat in that chair, Counselor. He came to and from his palatial estate in that same luxury shuttle you use. He rested both hands on his cane and studied the council races, a hint of amusement showing through. 400 years ago, the same patrol vessels monitored your shipping lanes, as those same ships have 400 years before that, and likely would 400 years from now had nothing changed. You have been stagnant for thousands of years, councillors, peaked, crested, and contented. 300,000 years ago, my ancestors forged spears with branch and flame. Do you wish to learn what our spears look like today? Ooh, a bot. Hello, bot. Hope you're doing well today. Fantastic, fantastic. Beep, boop, beep, boop, 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 beep. Yep, okay. You are now reported. Reported. And banned. Ba-doop-doop. Alrighty, back to the story. Day. Another sudden surge of violent outcry from the Senate. The councillors themselves driven to rage, and the human ambassador simply looked at the speaker again. The call for war echoed through the Senate, and was eagerly received by the council. But the human ambassador had known all along that there could have only been one outcome. Why? The speaker asked, and the ambassador simply smiled sadly. Because someone had to. End of chapter. Up-doot-de-doot. No. I shall defend the chat space from the robot overlords. Well, not overlords at this point. Underlords. Perturbances, intruders, intrude the door, intrude the window. Oh, caffeine. Minions. Yes, well, they're not my minions, so... The enemy has arrived. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of HFY, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is part of a series and is called Because Someone Had To. This particular story is part of a mini-series, This particular story is part of a 7-part mini-series and is called Because Someone Had To. There will be a playlist listed down below in the description, and don't forget to head over there and show the author some love. Anyways, on to the story. Part 2. The children were quiet, all watching their teacher or glancing at their Kiltan classmate. They were young and knew little of the conflict which had torn the known galaxy asunder so many years ago. They knew it only as the Liberation Wars, or the Great Rebellion. It was celebrated annually, with great gatherings and moments of silence to honor the war dead and to appreciate the liberties and freedoms gained, to lament the horrors of the past and what had been lost. The Kiltan child was silent, its secondary manipulator scratching at its carapace. The Kiltan child was silent, its secondary manipulator scratching at its carapaced underbelly with nervous energy. How? It took the Council 2 of their years to assemble a fleet to deal with the humans. But the humans had been preparing even before their ambassador spoke to the Senate. I beg forgiveness, Counselor, but it is wise. I beg forgiveness, Counselor, but is it wise for someone of such importance as yourself to accompany the fleet? We know little of the Terran military capabilities. The Grand Admiral of the punitive fleet stood next to the seated Siluan's Counselor. The fleet had finished assembling and was navigating its way to the gravity well of the The fleet had finished assembling and was navigating its way across the gravity well of an unnamed dead star. 117 vessels from various Senate species had gathered in their independent squadrons. They were only minutes from making their first jump into what was believed to be Terran-controlled space. The location of first contact between the Terran Merchant Marine and the Council Patrol ship. They have been in spacefaring for only 400 years, the Siluans. They have been in spacefaring. They have been spacefaring for only 400 years. The Siluans have ruled the stars for thousands. Whatever these humans may believe, their place amongst the stars shall be at our feet. The Councillor's tone was dismissive and irritated. Irritated that the Admiral commanding 4 Siluan's battleships and their associated escort and support vessels, it would prove more than enough to... Admiral, multiple energy spikes ahead. There are... The bridge of the Admiral's command ship erupted in a sudden activity as reports started coming in. Sensors down! Through the looming windows of the command deck, the flashes of dozens of ships dropping out of FTL could be clearly seen. Hunter's Raw reports under fire. Hunter's Raw reports unidentified target and weapons locks. There are unknown ships all around us. What's going on? The Admiral stalked into the center of the command deck as the confusion continued. Crew worked diligently to find... The crew worked diligently to find an answer for the Admiral, but strange reports continued to flood their terminals. Kinetic penetration starboard, casualties reported in the soaring wind. A barrage of contact reports were streaming in from various ships of the punitive fleet. All guns target and fire at all viable targets. The Admiral barked the order as he became overwhelmed by the total lack of information he was being provided with. And even as he finished speaking, the battleship shuddered as weapons fire impacted the heavily armored hull. Hull breach, gun decks. Casualty reports coming in. More unidentified targets, gun decks targeting and returning fire. The councillor sat, unmoving, frozen with rage. The grand, punitive fleet was being made fools of, and there was nothing he could do about it. Not that that mattered to him. With each shudder of the ship's hull and confused, useless reports by the command stations, he found himself just a bit closer to simply striking the Grand Admiral down and ordering a withdrawal of the fleet. Sir, emergency call from the militias. They have been boarded. They have lost control of engineering and central computer. And then suddenly, everything stopped. Admiral, system security has identified an unknown signal and blocked it. Systems are coming back online now. The Admiral turned towards the speaker. The ship's onboard computers technician rarely had anything to say during combat maneuvers. What are you talking about? There are a series of microsatellites around the fleet, Admiral. They were inert, and the computers wrote them off as simple debris. They activated when we came into range, and they began attacking our systems. The technician shrank in his chair, expecting the Admiral, or more likely the Councillor, to explode with rage at the discovery. There was a moment of silence as the bridge crew struggled to clear the remaining errors and sensor ghosts from their systems. The Grand Admiral could only glare out the windows of his ship towards where the FTL flash of what must have been the human fleet had entered the system. What is the situation? The Siluan's Councillor addressed the sensors operator, who was frantically trying to clear the errors in the ship's sensors. There are no enemy ships around us, Councillor. The fleet was firing on itself. The Councillor rose from his seat and approached the sensor operator station, and the crew member only had time to realize someone had approached before the Councillor had grabbed the crewman's throat from behind, clawed fingers digging into leathery hide with ease. Blood sprayed across the human... Blood... Good morning, FISO 001. It is 10 o'clock for me. Time shift. Time travel. New country, new time. Unless you're not talking to me, then fair enough. Digging into leathery. Blood sprayed across the terminal, followed by thick strands of viscera, as the operator's throat was torn free and flicked upon the terminal. His death was slow. The Admiral and much of the bridge crew remained silent as their dying crew member thrashed on the floor in a quickly widening puddle of blood, and the Councillor stalked back to his seat. But before he could sit, the communications operator suddenly spun around. The Grand Admiral stared at the display, his mind racing to understand again what was happening. Every ship in the fleet displayed some degree of battle damage, and his communications officer was in a heated argument with the captain of the militias over the apparently fake report of having been boarded. The bridge door opened, and a fresh crewman darted to the sensor station, coldly dragging their dead predecessor out of the way before setting to work. Enemy ships ahead and closing fast. I'm having trouble fixing their positions, sir. They're employing active and passive stealth... They are employing active and passive stealth measures. The Admiral... Admiral to fleet, I've nothing to say that the politicians haven't already. Today, we fired the first shots in a war we have been preparing for years. You know your duty, and what's at stake. Do your children proud. The Admiral, a stately woman of steel-grey hair and sharp features, stood on the bridge of the Independence, the largest carrier in the Terran fleet. The ship's captain continued to see the ship's Actually, my wife's office is directly above me, so when she moves her chair, it makes the knocking noise. Fair enough, Pfizer. Physio. Fair enough. The time differences just mess everything up. Oh, I'm whistling through my nose. Hate it when that happens. Fleet. In the Terran fleet. The ship's captain continued to see to the vessel's preparations for the coming battle. The admiral surveyed the fleet on the holographic display. 50 warships, the best humanity could produce, were arrayed in their formations, and the carrier group was deployed squadrons of strike craft. They were outnumbered more than 2 to 1. The punitive fleet had almost 3 times the tonnage of her fleet, and would employ tactics and formations that had been proven in combat for centuries. But they were fractured. Each Senate species ships operated as an independent entity rather than an extension of the whole. The Grand Admiral would be commanding the ship on which they rode, as well as dictating orders to the rest of the fleet. Orders that would then be interpreted differently by every sub-admiral, who in turn commanded their own ship and their own fleet. They would be slow to respond to changes in the battle. The opening salvo from the human fleet came in the form of more electronic warfare. The Admiral glanced to her left, to the holographic display of the ship's combat AI, modeled after the ancient goddess Athena, who was coordinating with 5 other combat AIs of the fleet. They barraged the punitive fleet with signals and false readings, actively infiltrating their communications network and wreaking havoc on their fleet's ability to function coherently. The second salvo was kinetic. Torpedoes leapt ahead, arcing high above or below the plane of punitive fleet. The second salvo. Racing. Hello? Hello? Can we hear me? Test, 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 test. I think I accidentally hit the mute button. Okay. And to obscure the advance of the human. Fleet. The ensuing battle was brief and bloody. In only a few short hours, the punitive fleet was shattered, 2/3 of its numbers crippled or destroyed. But humanity had underestimated the Senate species' dedication to the Council's directive, or perhaps their fear of reprisal for failure. Where damaged, human ships would withdraw. Senate vessels were just as likely to launch themselves forwards with suicidal intent, ramming human ships or dying in the effort. Over half the human fleet was lost in the battle, often with all hands. A dozen Senate ships sacrificed themselves to cover the retreat of the Grand Admiral's flagship. Cool. Well, the microphone and desktop audio are 2 separate things. So unless I specifically cut the desktop audio, it will continue to play. A dozen Senate ships. A dozen Senate ships sacrificed themselves to cover the retreat of the Grand Admiral's flagship, although by that point the Siluan's counselor had assumed personal command after killing the Grand Admiral, of course. It was victory for the young upstart, but a Pyrrhic. It was a victory for the young upstarts, but a Pyrrhic one, and set the tone for the conflict to come. End of chapter. Oh my goodness. So the next chapter is really long. I'm not going to do it simply because, as you've noticed, my concentration is up to shit. Normally after the first chapter, I'm warmed up, my brain's firing on at least half a cylinder, and we can get through stories better. But that's not happening today, for various reasons. No sleep, falling downstairs, drugs, stuff. So yeah. I will likely be playing some games. So if you want to stick around for that, that's great. If you don't want to stick around for that, that's also great. But we're going to have a nice chit-chat while I play some games. Well, play some Magic the Gathering. Oh. For the next hour or two. Yeah. Look, I would definitely eat the sweet baked goods and pretend like they would fix stuff, but I think it's just a rough day. These things happen. So with the lack of sleep, it destroys my concentration, as it does with everybody. But also, as you can hear, my voice isn't 100%, and I can force it to be good enough. But that forcing it increases the chance of strain. So I'm not going to do that. So we've got up until Friday to recover, which should be, excuse me, easy peasy. I should be fine by tomorrow, as long as I get some sleep. But yeah, that's that. My neck is sore, my head is sore, my back is starting to ache. Yeah. Look, the stairs are dangerous, shall we say. And I walk up and down them 20 times a day. For 2 months, 3 months. I'm the third person to fall down the stairs. So I'm happy about that. Not happy that I fell down them, just happy that it happened. Well, oh, I need to turn that down a bit. Hello? They are very steep, and they've got a curve in them. That's the problem. My OBS has frozen again. So I think that's good. No, that's not good. Not doing what we want to do. I have no idea why. The reason why it is um so steep. It's just ridiculously steep. Mm. Hmm. Try that. Having a frozen OBS does not help in any way. So I'm running on like a 30-second delay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Move it down there. We should be able to see everything. Yeah. Well, I mean, she baked some banana bread the other day, but I think he's referring to the baked goods from the shop that I keep buying. Okay. Move this back to full screen. Oh. Alrighty. It is a loud damn game. Actually, cancel. I don't want to share the opponent's stream mode. Is there a stream mode? Hmm. I have no idea if it's something special to blur out the opponent's names. Is there? Doesn't seem to be any problems. Oops. It's not what I meant to do. I'm just going to turn the sound down again. That's better. I think we'll just do a couple games and then I'll call it a day. Holy fuck. Shh. Blowing everyone's eardrums out, including mine. But don't worry, chat, I can still see you. Ooh. It's not great. Not the one I wanted, that's the one I wanted. Destroy target creature with flying. Curse splat. I think we'll do that. Easy victory. We'll keep this, I think. Mobilize is a nice mechanic. New one, I think. Pity it isn't really in black. Oh, it's not in green. Definitely limited in black. Greetings, Alpha Noob. I hope you're doing well. My pleasure, Deuce. I hope you sleep well. Thank you for popping past. It's very much appreciated. Ooh, that's not good. Lovely. Always awesome when that happens. When people are like, no, we want you to do this, and you do that. And they're like, no, no, we actually meant we want you to do this. Like, it's annoying. No, untap it. That's not what I wanted. Victory! I think this will be the last game, and then I'll end the stream, possibly go and sleep. Or something. Always attack. Always! Gotta put the aggro in aggro scroll. Some departments don't understand anything, no matter how much you try and explain it to them. Victory is mine. All right, we're past the hour mark, and I think I'm going to call it a day. I do apologize for it being such a short stream, but, things happen. Hopefully tomorrow we'll do a longer stream, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you all for spending your time with me in this day when everybody's fighting for everyone's attention. It becomes difficult, so I do appreciate that you're spending your currency of attention on me. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and then I'll see you again tomorrow.